Well, last week, one of Detroit's mayoral candidates made headlines for reasons that had little to do with his campaign. It all had to do with this video circulating social media. Now, Jonathan Barlow says he was trying to move cars for people after a late-night event near the Renaissance Center. The woman who recorded that video says Barlow approached her and her group of friends as an aggressor. You know, we've got Jonathan Barlow live in studio with us to give us his side. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks Fox 2 for every time they allow me to share my story and about my campaign.
Yes, we definitely want to hear your story and what happened here. So why don't you just tell us what was going on in the area? Were you there for an event or something?
Well, get this. I've been campaigning 24/7 ever since we've announced, and even a year before now. And so 24/7 campaigning has always been something that I do, whether it's an event, whether it's me going to the gas station, whether it's me going to church. I try to be as much proper in terms of etiquette in the right environments. But I also approach with caution because everyone does not like to be approached. And I'm very sympathetic and empathetic to anyone that's been ever in experience of trauma, because I'm very mindful of all those different nuances that we have when we meet people where they are.
So what happened? What was the event? Like, were you there for an event, or were you just out and about at the Renaissance Center, and the woman approached you, or she approached you? How did it go? How did everything go down?
We never got as far as the Renaissance Center. We were at Reelpool and Woodbridge, which is right near Steve's Soul Food, where we were at an event, and that was after I attended a Charles H. Wright event, and these were sorority and fraternity parties. Now, a week before my birthday, which was just on Saturday. Thanks for the happy birthday. But I was in celebration mode. And so taking my group of sorority sisters to multiple events, them pretty much being on my detail, of course, supporters of my campaign, we just wanted to make sure that we were doing our best to get the word out. Now, after we left the event, we were making sure that our whole entourage was able to leave. But more than anything, we were about safety, because we're hosting an event tomorrow called Safe Nights, Safe Spaces. We've been campaigning for this initiative for 2 months. So for this to actually happen, we're trying to turn it into a positive to help people understand that, you know, regardless of what happens, let's all get home safely, which we all did. Let's not drag this into political episodes. Let's not go viral for the wrong things. And the whole time there, I was just really encouraging them to vote, because that's what civic engagement is about. Finding those who would normally not engage and getting them to be a part of community.
So it was kind of a lot going on. And in the video, we couldn't really see what happened fully. I mean, it was like a 4-second video. So, I mean, maybe you can break down like what happened leading up to that point, to the phones coming out and her pressing record, you pressing record. What happened?
Well, I really didn't get the chance to press record that many times, especially after my phone was taken.
And this is the video you recorded.
Yeah, they definitely snatched my phone, and the young lady got hit. And the whole time I was there, just trying to de-escalate, because it got very escalated very quickly. Upon trying to campaign, I expected to be greeted with a hug and a warmth, but in return, I was greeted with, I'm going to put you on TikTok. And normally you don't believe someone who just comes randomly, regardless of intoxication on their end, from being at an event, which was all in good accord, and positive events. So for her to take out her phone immediately, I was in shock. I couldn't believe it that this was happening to me. But I knew that regardless, all things were going to work to the good. And no matter what, I was going to care for them just like I would care for my sister, my mother, or my grandmother, because that's where I come from, a legacy of elevating women, elevating and supporting their business, economic, and empowerment, but most definitely supporting them equitably in order to have their voice heard. And that's all I wanted to do regardless. And I'm glad she's getting her voice heard, because I expect anyone who experiences anything to make their voice heard. But there's always two sides to the story. And I happen to be the one who kind of caught a little flack for this one in terms of people not understanding the context. But hopefully people understand that this was all in good intentions. And I just wanted to make sure that the ladies understood who I was, understood they did have an option in this mayoral election.
So you mentioned intoxication. You say that the women were intoxicated. Alcohol was clearly involved here. Did you have a few drinks yourself, or?
I had actually 2 or 3 drinks earlier that night. But what's funny is that people think that the drink in my hand in the video was actually alcohol. There's a very great juice, and it's called Martinelli's Sparkling Apple Juice. It's my favorite drink. My mother stocks them in the refrigerator when I'm not looking, and I definitely take it throughout the course of the night to appear social a lot of times, but also to make sure that I keep a clear head and get the most refreshing beverage that I've ever had.
So there's reports that she mentioned something about your car, and that's kind of what blew this whole thing up. Is that where you think things took a turn that night?
I think things were going to take the wrong turn if I didn't do what the young lady said to do when she initially came over there and tried to keep me away from the other group members.
Okay.
She was very adamant about not wanting anyone around her group. I don't know if anyone in that group was in a relationship, if they were married. That's why I asked the question, was somebody married? Because I would never want to be engaging a woman at night in a dark place, and her man was looking from afar. So there was a number of questions and exchanges in my attempt to de-escalate. But I think honestly, once she found out I was a mayoral candidate, within 30 seconds of being there, she took out her phone. Her friend bumped into her several times. That's what caused her to drop her phone. Her friend was always trying to get her away from me. And so I think that I appreciate her friends, because one of them gave me my phone back. I did have several at the time. But I just think that this is a lesson that we all can learn from, because the political extreme nature that media can take things, and it's not always traditional media. Traditional media, I think, a lot of times resolve things. I think social media can very well take narratives and misinform us, and it's our duty to hold leaders accountable, to make sure that we're all transparent, and that starts at the lowest level. That starts in our homes, to inform each other about the right and truthful things going on around us.
So how do you think all of this is going to impact your campaign and the things that you are positioning yourself to support?
Well, get this. We planned on bringing the most money, jobs, and homes, and reaching literally every family once we become mayor. We don't hesitate. We don't derail. We don't get distracted when things like this come across our path, because we've been handling problems like this for clients all of our lives, probably for the last 20 years. Really, I've been handling fixing type problems behind the scenes, not only for the city, but for everyone else. And so we hope to bring them, again, the most innovative approach, making this an international innovation hubs, reaching every family, creating community innovation hubs, but bringing the best leadership approach to the table to have the best management style that Detroit has ever seen. I want to make history here in Detroit, and I'm not going to let any small TikTok viral superstar ruin this moment for Detroiters.
So if you could go back, would you do anything differently? Would you respond a little bit different? Maybe even if it's during the situation or after, would you do anything different?
After 20 years of entertainment, working in different venues, working at the biggest of venues to the smallest of venues, I never thought I would need personal security. Personal security is something that I definitely am taking consideration of. I did have detail there, but they did stay with my car. I would definitely keep more people around me. I move so quick that it's hard to keep people just trailing me and right by my side. And I don't like to put that pressure on anybody. But one thing I will say is this. I had the full opportunity to leave sooner. And regardless of how trained I am to de-escalate, regardless of how much of a people's person I think I am, sometimes you have to leave the situation sooner. And so to all my brothers out there who may not have gotten out their situation soon enough, I want to be that person that says, listen, I just made it out of it to where everyone's still able to get home safely. But I want them to take this in consideration in their next moment, to say, listen, we don't have to argue. We can de-escalate, but we can exit the situation and come back tomorrow and talk about whatever it is that we were going to talk about in the first place. So conflict resolution, safety for families, especially domestically, is a huge, huge thing for me. And I want to continue to preach it. So that's what I would do differently, is leave a little bit sooner.
So outside of preaching and advocating for that, for safety and leaving the situation and exiting when you see things getting horrible or worse or taking a turn, how are you going to position yourself to be someone that can provide that for residents of Detroit?
Well, I think part of who I am is being one of the most accessible mayors that will ever hit Detroit. And so being one of the most accessible mayors, you do have to give and take. There are always going to be some pros and cons, but you have to have more people around you that's going to organize and structure that type of interaction. And so I never want to be someone who is known as aggressive or any of those stigmas that cause people to be deterred. I always want to be someone who's all the way open, giving as much love and care as possible. And as being a minister for well over 10 years, being a community advocate, working in schools, coaching basketball, being an alpha where we constantly preach, giving back to our community, I want to be more of an example as I have been all of my life. And so that's why I'm upping my game. I'm rising above the ashes on this one because there is nothing going to deter me from being the leader that I always have been for Detroit. And I just thank God for an opportunity to say all things can work to our good as long as we are doing things decent and in order.
All right. Well, it seems like you are turning a new leaf here, moving forward in the situation and ready to see what comes next. Jonathan Barlow, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.